Welcome to Clocking In, Voices of NC Manufacturing. I'm your host, Phil Mintz, Director of the North Carolina Manufacturing Extension Partnership, otherwise known as NCMEP. My role is to drive outreach to NC manufacturers, build relationships to federal and state leaders, and coordinate efforts to drive profitable manufacturing growth in North Carolina. Throughout my time working closely with manufacturers, I have heard the most quirky, curious, and memorable stories. I wanted to turn these stories into a podcast so that others may hear and be informed and inspired. From humble beginnings to manufacturing titans, from tragedy to triumph, I will be interviewing some of these manufacturers who have made North Carolina manufacturing the powerhouse that it is today. Just a short walk from the banks of the Pamlico River in Washington, North Carolina, is Carver Machine Works, a nearly 50-year-old manufacturing company. Carver Machine Works specializes in build-to-print fabrication, mechanical assembly, and the repair and overhaul of heavy equipment for a variety of industries, including petrochemical, pulp and paper, and mining. The company also has a significant amount of business that services the defense industry, concentrated on naval defense. Today, we're speaking with Lindsey Crisp, who is the president and CEO of CMW Global. Lindsey joined Carver in 2005, leaving a senior manager position at Dixon Hughes Goodman accounting firm. Lindsey has a bachelor's degree in accounting from East Carolina University and holds the accounting credentials of Certified Public Accounting and Chartered Global Management Accountant. Beyond his leadership at Carver Machine Works, Lindsey is a great advocate for the manufacturing industry, particularly in workforce development. I could go on, but Lindsey, thank you for a few minutes of your time. How are you?
I'm great, Phil. It's great to be with you, and thank you for that warm introduction.
Yeah, they had to cut a lot of it down. You know, you're such a great advocate and great promoter of manufacturing. So, Lindsey, I've driven to your factory a couple of times, and it's in such a beautiful area. How in the world do you resist just heading down to the river nearby and taking a boat ride at least once a day?
It's tough, Phil. It is a beautiful area. I grew up in Greenville, North Carolina, and in my childhood, my family would come in on Sunday afternoons and come water ski down on the Pamlico River and in Blunt's Creek. And so it was just a real blessing to be able to move here and raise our kids here. And it is a great place to live. And it is tempting to get distracted from what my job is sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, it's just right down the street to the river.
It's right there. That's right.
Yeah, you have to take River Road to get there.
That's exactly right, which is just
amazing.
Another tease. That's right.
Yeah, so your journey to manufacturer leadership is not that common, you know, as we generally see presidents and CEOs for smaller manufacturers, mostly developed from engineering professions or accomplished technician work. So how has that transition from a pure accounting profession work for you?
It was a big transition, Phil. You know, I was very fortunate that I had a really supportive team when I joined 20 years ago. They were very kind and patient with me. I think they also at least acted like they appreciated what I might have brought to the table. And that was the accounting and finance part, which was my, kind of specialty and educational background. But then also, the sales and the networking part as well, which is something that I still enjoy very much. And so, we've worked real hard. I mean, we're a team, right? And not everybody can bring the same level of skill to the table. And so frequently I remind myself that I need to stop talking and listen, because there are other subject matter experts that are far beyond my capability. And my job is to listen to them and support them as we all work toward the mission of Carver Machine Works.
Yeah, do manufacturers in general have a kind of a particular challenge as it comes to finances and accounting that other organizations might not have?
I do think there's a higher level of complexity, and it's really built around cost accounting. You have to really understand what drives cost, where your break even is, the difference between fixed and variable cost are fundamental aspects of breaking even and understanding how you grow your business in a smart way, evaluate profitability of customers and individual jobs. And so I do think that's very important.
Yeah, I guess it's not like retail where people just come to the counter and buy stuff on a regular basis and you're pretty steady there. You guys got to go out and hustle and project, right?
That's exactly right. And, volume is has a huge impact on the cost. And so we've come a long way over the years and being able to understand, the value cost, fixed cost, variable cost, and how that all plays into making sure that we consistently stay profitable.
Yeah. So smaller manufacturers like Carver, they don't last for 50 years without going through multiple transformations or adjustments to maintain and grow, right? Can you
Right.
speak a bit about the origins of Carver and how it is maintained and grown to the level of success you have today?
Sure. That's a great question, Phil. Our business, our founder, Leroy Carver, 50 years ago, went to a large phosphate mining facility on the other side of the river, east of us, called then it was Texas Gulf, and now it's Nutrien. Basically asked for a pump casing that was going to be thrown away. And he, with his particular set of background and skills, figured out a way to do what was really additive manufacturing. He weld repaired cavitation and worn areas in that pump casing and then the machine surfaces back down or ground the ground surfaces, the non-machine surfaces back down. 50 years ago, that was a novel idea. And what it meant for our customer was, that casing could be repaired versus being replaced for, a fraction of the cost. That is still one of our product lines 50 years later. And we are doing those type of repairs in the industrial sector as we've always done, but in the last 20 years, and also in the defense industry with large investment castings that we do weld repair to. So, when you look at the trajectory of the organization, it was one customer. That customer had its cyclicality of business, which affected our business. That pushed us into the pulp and paper industry, which was also a very corrosive and abrasive manufacturing process. That led us into getting our ASME R and U stamps to build and repair pressure rated vessels for the industrial sector. And also through that process, we began to accumulate some expertise in um, what we would call exotic materials, titanium, Hastelloy, Inconel, high value materials that are usually very corrosive resistant or abrasive resistance. And so we started kind of to build this portfolio of expertise in welding and machining and mechanically assembling those. And then as the paper industry went through its transition, the computer industry came about. You didn't need to use as much printed material. And then with the advent of the internet, the paper industry really began to suffer. And our company had to find other markets that would allow us to have sustainability. And the defense industry was one of those markets. It insulated us a little bit from international competition from India and China. And it also allowed us to leverage all the expertise that we gained previously. So, when I look back at the history of the company, it's always been about adapting and growing expertise, growing in capability, and the importance of having a diversified customer base, knowing that any one customer base at any one time could be affected by economic cyclicality or just overall factors that might hurt the business. So those are the type of things, diversification is something we focus entirely on a lot.
Yeah, so it looks like that you guys use kind of credentials to kind of help you move along in a lot of places. I see that you're ISO certified and all of these things. Can you talk about the importance of some of those credentials in your company?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Our first outside certification was our ASME R and U stamps, which we have to get certified by a third party. And we did that so we could start doing work in that arena. The next thing we pursued was our AS 9100 and NADCAP certification. NADCAP stands for National Aerospace and Defense Contractors Accreditation Program. Phil, we started that journey in ISO and AS 9100 and NADCAP so we could participate in the defense industry business. What has happened to us over these last 20 years is we've grown in appreciation and realized how fundamentally that is important for Carver Machine Works to have control, quality control over processes, over material, over scheduling and resource allocation. And, that's been a really key part of our survival. and it's interesting is that wasn't the intent when we pursued those certifications, but that was as we learned and matured, that was the result of them. So we're so I'm so proud of our sophistication for us to be, just over 50 people. And the type of work we do is really remarkable, if I can say so myself.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a common thing we hear. People start out by just trying to get the certificates, right? Whatever we got to do to get it. But then it's like, oh, wow, this is good for us.
Yes, that's exactly right, Phil. And
Yeah.
NC State's IES program has played a key, as you well know, a key role in our getting it initially about 20 years ago. And then most recently, when we completely revamped our quality system, you guys supported us in that. And we couldn't have done it without you, frankly.
Yeah, we accept our role as kind of being like a cheerleader, as trying
Yeah,
to help companies realize that they can do it and it's very important.
right.
You're known as Carver Machine Works, and you also use the name CMW Global. Can you talk about how those things came about?
Yeah. Well, that's been an evolution also. And I think if you really want to know us, then you've got to take the time to understand which name we're using today. No, I'm joking with that.
Yeah.
That's probably not the soundest marketing plan, but with the advent of the internet, we were trying to get a web address, and the Carver Machine Works was taken.
Oh, wow.
So CMW Global was one we could get licensed to, and that was about 20 years ago. Well, about 5 years ago, we decided that we wanted to put more focus on the acronym of CMW and the fact that we are a global company servicing customers all worldwide. And maybe the initial owners are no longer associated with the business, and we just felt like that was a better fit for who we are and who we want to be. And in the industrial sector, business to business, your longevity plays a huge role in that. So we kind of use both names. And I would tell you in the defense industry, we're more recognized as CMW Global,
Hmm.
and the industrial sector, who've known us for 50 years, they know us as Carver Machine Works. So it's a little convoluted, but that's how we got there. You
Yeah,
can blame management for that. I'll take full responsibility for that.
that's good. Good. I don't want to get done, but before giving you a chance to talk about your efforts in workforce development, I think it's very fascinating, what you guys are having to do because you really have a specializations over there. You got people having to repair things and things have to be really precise. And so you need the right kinds of people in there to help you do that. Can you talk a bit about your challenges there and how you kind of move forward on getting the right people in place?
Yes, Phil, absolutely. The craftsmen that we have work in our environment, as you mentioned, are really skilled machinists, really skilled welders, and industrial mechanics. And they are not out there. They're not in the marketplace. And we have gone through spells where we needed to add people because of retirement or because of growth. And we would, run ads and hoping that we could recruit or do other active recruiting efforts, and it was such an incredible challenge. So we would wait 6 months to find quote unquote the person. And that was 6 months that we really could have been bringing somebody who had the right mindset, fit our organization, and we could have trained them to be in that role. And, we're in Washington, North Carolina, which is rural. We're not outside of Charlotte. And so we have a population base challenge as well. And so we have had to really take the mindset of hiring for fit and training for skill to help with our retention and to add to the skill set of our team. We've worked pretty closely over the last 2 years with the Navy Talent Pipeline, who is working with folks in the defense industrial base to help companies like us broaden our pipeline of applicants. How do we recruit effectively? And then once we've brought them on the first day, how do we make sure we keep them? And we've come a long way in the last 2 years in that regard. I'm really proud to say when you walk around our shop floor now, we have machinists that are doing complex operations that are mid to late 20s. You know,
Hmm.
2 years ago,
Right.
you would have probably asked those very people, what is a machinist? And they might not even been able to tell you. And I can understand that because when I first came to Carver Machine Works, I don't know, I could have explained what a machinist is either. But all that stuff is so trainable. And what is so rewarding of that to me is these young people now have a skill that is extremely valuable. And so they have a living wage that they can have families with and make long-term financial goals with. The other thing that's really rewarding to me is I've got a group of really talented craftsmen that are toward the end of their career, and watching them take a personal interest in these young people and share what they know. I mean, it's really inspiring. It's one of the things that gets me up in the morning. It's awesome.
All right, so it's 20 years now since you jumped into the deep end with your commitment to manufacturing, right? So
Right.
obviously it's not much of a secret the way we do manufacturing in the US is evolving, as our global view of commerce is in transition and all of that. So we know from history that dramatic changes always lead to some opportunities. So is Carver needed to do some repositioning with their business strategies lately as you look at global, the way things are happening, or are you pretty well set up to flex into whatever happens a bit differently?
Phil, I think we're always, like I talked about the history of our company, always kind of adapting to the environment that we're in. And I would tell you, we're very much in that state right now as well. We certainly live in interesting times, between tariffs and trade policies, interest rates doing what they've done over the last 4 years, changing in governmental priorities, and then, our current, governmental funding questions. I mean, it's a lot of dynamics in what we do. It's exciting though. AI, additive manufacturing, those are the areas that we're really starting to lean into and get training on those topics so our team can compete going forward and be as efficient as we can. When you look at our input costs outside of material, these well-trained, valuable craftsmen are our biggest input cost. And I see additive manufacturing and AI as being an opportunity to leverage that talent to grow the company in a very profitable way and be really competitive.
So you're gonna have some big additive machines coming in there now. You're gonna be using.
Well, we're starting to have conversations with folks in that area that we've kind of made contact through the defense industry. They're looking for folks like us that can put their technology to work, and we're looking for their expertise to how do we take that technology and use it in our product line. And so, those conversations have been going on for a couple of years. We came really close to making a large investment 3 years ago in a piece of machinery and decided to wait, and
Yeah.
replace an older piece of equipment. It is something that we are addressing and putting more investment of time and money into.
Yeah. All right. Well, the defense industry is in good hands with people like Carver. Seems like you guys are well positioned to help us out as we try to protect ourselves a little bit better. The world's really changing.
It really is. It really is. And we're proud of what we do in that arena. We're proud of what we do in the industrial sector. The work we do is relied upon. In the industrial sector, when we send a rebuilt pump back, our customer has got to know that when their pump goes down, they can just plug that in. And then the defense industry, when we have a sailor out at sea and they're going to launch a jet off the deck of an aircraft carrier, or they turn on a missile defense system that has components we build in it. I mean, we take a lot of pride in that, and it takes a lot of skill to do what we do. And I'm very fortunate. I'm surrounded by a lot of skilled people.
Yeah. Great. Well, we've been speaking with Lindsey Crisp. He's the president and CEO of Carver Machine Works, or CMW Global, whichever day it is, you reach out to him. But Lindsey, I appreciate the time that you've given us today and appreciate your time talking to us.
Absolutely, Phil. Thanks for inviting me, and I appreciate everything you do.
Yeah, I mean, go and sneak that boat down to the river now when you get
Well,
down.
you're not too far away. You need to make a trip over so I don't have to go boating alone.
Yeah, yeah. But thanks again, Lindsey, and we'll talk more later. Thank you for joining today's Clocking In, Voices of NC Manufacturing. This podcast is brought to you by NC State's College of Engineering, the North Carolina Manufacturing Extension Partnership, and Industry Expansion Solutions. If you'd like to learn more about the solutions NCMEP offers, go to www.ncmep.org. Want to listen to previous Clocking In podcasts? Go to ncmep.org/clockingin.